Alright guys, so for the update for voter fraud, or voter irregularities, whatever we're calling it, I fucking couldn't tell you the proper terminology of the day. First, we got some cleanup from yesterday because after I published my video that entailed all of the irregularities that were happening in Michigan where they weren't going to certify Wayne County, well, a couple hours later, this bag of shit that you see right in the center of your screen, not in the bottom right, he was a part of a doxing campaign of the two Republicans who wouldn't certify because there were too many irregularities happening in Wayne County. Yeah, he decided to dox the two people that were there. So yeah, after all that pressure and being called racists and just really having to go through a bunch of less than desirable circumstances, the board actually certified it. So the vote in Wayne County became certified contingent upon doing a full audit. So it's more or less just kind of a ceremonial thing, which would have actually been the only thing that would have happened if they didn't certify it, because it would have eventually had to get re-audited and recanvassed. So nothing was really accomplished. And the only thing that was accomplished is these people were violently harassed, and they had all of their information put out there for people, and especially this lump of fucking shit, who we will get to right now. A Democratic Michigan state representative-elect doxed a chairwoman, so somebody who actually has power, and that's why I've been so stringent on the fact that I can't stand the fact that the people who least deserve the power are getting power right now. It's just seeing what they're doing right now with the promise of future power, because this guy hasn't even been elected to anything. Well, let me walk that back a second. He hasn't actually been sworn in for anything. He's won his election, won in big brackets, like this entire election so far. And he's already just wielding his power with an iron fist. But what could you possibly expect from a fucking Democrat? Honestly, there was a time and place for the Democrats, and I think they lost their mind somewhere around the time that Bill Clinton was using intern snatch as a humidor. So yeah, let's just walk this back. A Democrat Michigan state representative-elect doxed the chairwoman of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers on a public Zoom meeting on Tuesday, revealing where her children attend school and claiming that she was enabling racism by refusing to certify Wayne County election. That is the most bizarre thing. When I was watching, I seen a clip of this fucking piece of shit, and then there was another rabid psychopath who did a little bit less than what he did, but he was still calling them out by name, saying that they were racists and that their souls would burn in hell. Just a total disassociation from a reality from these people. Yeah, they found out there was a bunch of weird shit happening in Wayne County specifically, and they weren't comfortable with saying that things were fine with this election. And yeah, in turn, we'll just see what happened. You, Miss Monica Palmer from Grosse Pointe Woods, which has a history of racism, just throw that out there, don't provide any evidence, but make sure that you get all the evidence from where they live and where their kids go to school first. You can just throw out these baseless accusations, and this is an actual good term to use when you're making legitimately baseless accusations, are deciding to enable and continue to perpetuate the racist history of this country. And I want you to think about what that means for your kids. He said, name dropping the name of their school and talking about the impact her decision would have on black classmates. So he's trying to call a lynch mob to her kids and to where they live. The sickness of these human beings, if you can call them such, knows no bounds. But we'll just go ahead and get this piece of shit's name out there. The exact moment Democrat Abraham Ayash threatened Monica Palmer's children on Zoom, this extortion attempt directly influenced the decision to agree to certify the election fraud in Wayne County. Exactly, it did. Abraham Ayash, who was the only candidate in Michigan's 4th district, that's not sus at all, said his district was being personally attacked by Palmer's refusal to certify the election. Yes, because we cheated fair and square. Okay? That's what I hate about this entire process right now, because it's always easier to ask for forgiveness instead of for permission, and it's always easier to do something and then have it proven wrong later, because you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, apparently, that they cheated. So since all of those sus ballots are actually in these people's hands, you have to prove that they are indeed illegitimate, otherwise the cycle continues anew. So here's more of this asshole's grandstanding. You are standing here today while she was sitting. It was a Zoom call after all. Telling folks that Black Detroit should not have their votes counted. Well, if they don't live there, or if they're dead, or if they're not even voting knowingly, based on some of the discrepancies that we found out that all three of those are highly likely, you are certainly showing that you are a racist. Yes, because Detroit is 100% black. There's no other. And you know everybody voted for Joe Biden there, so yep. Once again, just an accusation to elicit a type of response, and well, it had its intended effect. You may say that you are not. You may claim that you are not, but we know you're a witch. You weigh more than a duck. And if you don't, that means you're a witch. And if you do, then that means that you're using your magic. But let's be very clear. Your words today and your actions today make it clear that you are okay with silencing the vote of an 80% African American city. So those other 20% of people don't matter. He is only concerned about the 80% because he's a racist in and of himself, thinking that blacks are a monolith. Kind of like Joe Biden, thinking that they are impervious to any irregularities or any sort of mistakes. But I've already spent too much effort on trying to parse through this asshole's bot logic. IASH's public doxing of Palmer comes after the Wayne County Board of Canvassers voted 2-2 to deny certification of the November 3rd election votes after Palmer and other Republican board members noted that there were ballot discrepancies in Detroit that they refused to ignore. Palmer said that she was open to certifying everywhere but Detroit. Interesting. Palmer and others noted that some precincts in Wayne County were out of balance, meaning that the number of ballots processed were different than the number who signed in. That is very important information. There were more ballots counted than people who came to vote, and that encompasses all of the mail-in votes, all of the early votes, and the day of votes. That just doesn't mean people who came in that day, there were more votes off of that by physically coming in and signing in. That means that the voter registration books didn't line up with the number of votes that were there. I would say that that's fairly suspect. IASH, being the blatant racist that he is, however, did not accept Palmer's skepticism and instead continued to berate her for being a bigot and a partisan. Confession through projection. Know that we see what's happening now that there is nothing other than Jim Crowing. What an ass. That is going on right now, and recognizing the facts, he said. Okay, he's so vociferous with his claims over Skype, over Zoom, whatever fucking barrier between two actual people are. And that's what I also hate. This is going to be a wild tangent about wearing masks out in public. Listen, if you are petrified and you want to wear a mask where you go everywhere, that is totally up to you. By all means, feel free. But to me and a bunch of other people out there, it's dehumanizing, okay? All I see is somebody's eyes. Now, some people have very beautiful eyes. Some people look like they've been up for 3 days straight. And I've noticed too, whenever I go out to the grocery store, because there's not much really else to do where I live, but that was true before the pandemic, and even still, people are a lot meaner. And maybe that's because I'm not out on the town all the time, me with my highfalutin language right here. But I also notice that it's just very robotic, and the only time that you get a genuine response is if some place is not that busy, and then somebody will take down their mask in order to say something, or we just all have a chuckle at the hilariousness of this. But just the regular person who's out there just making sure that it's 6 feet, always have their mask up, and it's just so dehumanizing. And I don't know how we get back from that. But that's just a tangent and another topic for another video. Oh yes, so the racist finishes up here. Going on right now, and recognize the facts. Yes, the facts of the matter are there were more ballots processed than the number of people who signed in. Count every vote, right? The Republican Party's major candidate has sued over 25 times across the country. Know the facts. You are a board of canvassers. Do not decide who is to be elected. The voters to know the facts. You as a board of canvassers do not decide who is to be elected. The voters to know the facts. I'd imagine he was very impassioned when he said this, because this doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. Because it's their job to certify the vote, and if they find any discrepancies, bring them up and check them to the best of their abilities. So like all racists, he's just misinformed about the entire topic. Shortly after Ayash's verbal attack, both Republican board members changed their votes to certify the election because they were both called out by name on a public Zoom call, and they were doxxed right there by this dickhead and another guy who just went on this fucking wild rant in the same call, right to their faces. Well, not to their faces, through a video screen where they were comfortably in their own house. Like I said, these are people who do not deserve power because you see what they do when they have the power. And this is just a flash forward into the future. You think they'll be even kinder when they're all officially sworn in? Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, so that wraps up any sort of late-breaking information as of right now, as I'm recording this. Nothing new's come out of Michigan. All they're going to be doing is auditing the results in Wayne County, and then it'll get further certified because we're still waiting for the entire state to be certified. So tack on the outstanding lawsuits, and they got to go through these ballots with a fine-tooth comb, theoretically, but we're seeing what's happening in Georgia right now, and guess what? We'll get to that as well. But first, we got to stop over in California? I know, right? I thought that was not in contention whatsoever. But it's important to bring up the fact that two are charged in LA voter fraud scheme involving 8,000 ballot applications. Both men are charged with conspiracy to commit voter fraud, procuring and offering a false or forged instrument, and interference with a prompt transfer of a completed affidavit. Interesting. Two Los Angeles men have been charged with voter fraud after applying for 8,000 ballots in the name of a fictitious or dead voters. No evidence of widespread voter fraud. Okay, so now we got instances in 6 states and now the most populous state in the union. I know it'll never be enough for the media, but I'm ready to say it's widespread. I think. Carlos Antonio de Bourbon Montenegro, when 3 names isn't enough. 53 years old, and Marcos Raul Averballo, 34, allegedly attempted to commit voter fraud in Hawthorne, a city in Los Angeles County, California. According to LA District Attorney, the 2 men attempted the fraud to help Montenegro win his bid for mayor of the city. Now, just like yesterday's instance of an entire vote being thrown out in Nevada, those 153,000 votes, guess what else is also on the ballot? That would be the presidential election as well, and a bunch of other Senate, and I think there was a Senate race in Nevada. There was at least House races as well. So yeah, guess what? Those also get thrown out too. So just saying that there are votes out there that now are compromised and going to get thrown out. So yeah, let's finish this up. The men submitted the application for fictitious, non-existent, or deceased voters between July and October of 2020, when we also seen all of those weird instances of dead people in Michigan voting as well. It almost seems like it's a concerted effort. I'm just gonna let that one sit out there for a second. According to the Attorney General's office, Montenegro also falsified nomination papers with fake names, addresses, and signatures. Now, who could possibly do that? What this does is it illustrates that election officials here, as well as across the country, take these issues very seriously. This was 8,000 registrations in the jurisdiction that has 5.8 million voters. Oh, so it's not that much. Come on now, we shouldn't be looking at that. No evidence of widespread voter fraud. Said Dean Logan, the county's top election official. Logan also noted that none of the fraudulent ballots were submitted in the mayoral election. Oof, crisis averted. See, the system works. No need to look behind the curtain. Both men are charged with conspiracy to commit voter fraud, procuring and offering a false or forged instrument, and interference with a prompt transfer of a completed affidavit. And then it wraps up, if convicted, Montenegro could face 15 years in prison. Well, Arevalo faces up to 7. So at least one instance of potential voter fraud was caught and was not able to go through. But as you can see, they were looking at fictitious, non-existent, and deceased voters. You'd think that that's the only place that happened, especially for it to be caught in a place like California. It really gets the old noggin jogging. So yeah, it's always fun to report the less covered state instances of fraud so they can stop with the instances of widespread, it doesn't exist. But you'll never get a fair representation out there, so the more you know. But let's go back to some well-tread ground. Now, when I did my voter fraud update from yesterday, This was just kind of coming in. We didn't have any hard numbers. But this isn't a repeat from Monday. This actually just dropped yesterday. 2nd Georgia County finds thousands of missing votes. I swear to God, this isn't a replay. In another shocking turn of events, the Georgia Secretary of State's office announced on late Tuesday that another county has discovered missing ballots during the audit of its presidential election race in the state, adding to a total of 1,577 votes to President Donald Trump's vote tally. While performing a hand recount, that's legitimately all they're doing at this point. All the reports that are coming out of the different tabulation centers is, like I've told you guys before, people are being forced to watch the counts on screens outside of the actual place where they're tabulating the ballots. Nobody's checking signatures. It's just a glorified recount. But the fact that they are uncovering different memory cards, because I guess Dominion Voting Software is a big fan of the PSP, they're coming up with a bunch of that. Well, yeah. Is it even fair to call over 5,000 votes at this point a bunch? This is just in Georgia, by the way. This right now, yeah. Different county. Yeah, while performing a hand recount, Fayette County officials uncovered 2,755 votes that were not included on the initial count, reports WSB-TV. Secretary of State official Gabriel Sterling told the press that the ballots were not counted after being scanned onto a card but failed to be uploaded in the initial count. Like I said, I swear to God this isn't a one-to-one replay of what happened yesterday. He blamed poll workers for failing to follow procedures and safeguards that are designed to catch the issue. See, it's human error, it's glitches, it's never there's anything fundamentally wrong with the entire system, or an instance to, like retard from Michigan said, suppress the vote. But it's fine when you suppress Republicans or people who you think wouldn't be Republicans. Perhaps. Sterling told the press that the office is currently investigating another batch of missing votes in Walton County that may have been missed. Cool, we got another story coming out of Georgia, so, and that's actually not Walton County, so, oh boy, maybe that'll come out here later today, and that'll be tomorrow's little update. The majority of the 2,755 votes in Fayette were for President Donald Trump over the Democratic presumptive nominee, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Libertarian Party candidate, who are you, among other write-in candidates. 1,577 votes have been added to Trump's tally, surpassing the 1,128 new votes from Biden. The addition to the newly found votes changes the margin in Georgia by under 500 votes, edging Trump ever closer to Biden's lead of 12,929 votes. And it gets even slimmer after the next story, folks. Throughout the state, counties are conducting independent recounts and presumptive audits over the votes due to irregularities discovered by poll workers, election officials, and members of the Trump campaign. Fayette County is the second county in the state to report an issue with missing votes. On Monday, election officials found 2,600 votes previously unreported in Floyd County, which changed the margin by 800 in favor of President Trump. See, they are different. Aha, they notarized it in the story here. But that was yesterday's news. I needed to update you guys on that before we get to today's news, where they had a huge error. Georgia Republican poll watcher discovered recount error off by more than 9,000 votes. 9,000 votes for Biden. Uh-oh. An error in Dekalb County, Georgia, during a recount caused a voting batch to be labeled incorrectly. It just so happened. Huh? Is anybody... Okay, this is like the fucking 10th day in a row I've been doing voter fraud stories, and I'm starting to feel like I'm going insane reading this stuff. The fact of the matter is, there is so much irregularity going on right now that it's hard to say there wasn't a complete and total scheme. Well, in fact, Biden said that they had assembled the most comprehensive voter fraud system in the world. I understand that that was probably a gaffe, but you never know with Joe. When you're that old, things just kind of pour out of your mouth. But let's get into the story here. An error in Dekalb County, Georgia, during a recount caused a voting batch of labeled Oh, a voting batch should be labeled incorrectly, appearing to overstate Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's performance. David Schaefer, chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, announced the error on Twitter Wednesday morning, saying that while a batch of ballots contained 1,081 votes for Biden and 13 for Trump, the batch was labeled as containing 10,707 votes for Biden. That's not even, like they said when there was the, 138,000 votes. That was just an error. There was an additional zero added there. That is wildly different. Like, even if you add the 13 onto there, that doesn't add up. That's fucking shady. Unless there's another batch, but what? That don't make no sense. I'm trying to mentally gymnastic this, but I'm not placing on the podium with this one. There is no excuse for this one. One of our monitors discovered a 9,626 vote error in the Dekalb County hand count, Schaefer said. One batch was labeled 10,707 for Biden and 13 for Trump. Okay, it's even more hilarious when they put the 10,000 next to 13. There, are some staggering numbers out there right now that are allegedly legit, right? It's like 0.1% of the vote. 1/10 of the vote. That's, yeah. Somebody should have seen that was a little off, but I guess when you're on the payroll of one side, you don't really need to count. An improbable margin, even by DeKalb County standards. The actual count of the batch was 1,081 for Biden and 13 for Trump, Schaefer said. The error reportedly occurred Sunday, has recorded in a signed affidavit, and was observed by a Republican poll watcher who was monitoring the audit, vote, review, hand count, and recording of votes at the DeKalb County Board of Elections. During the observation, the GOP poll watcher joined another Republican, noticed the mistake on the early voting ballot box, and brought it to the attention of the election officials. Yeah, the math here doesn't make sense. This box ain't that fucking heavy. Is it full of peaches? The officials corrected the error, finding 2 fewer total votes than previously thought. Schaefer also pointed out other errors may have gone unnoticed due to limitations and restrictions on how many observers could be assigned to counting tables. And I've been saying this a bunch, but somebody at least has this written down, so I don't look insane. I swear to God, I'm not insane. We are limited to 1 monitor for every 10 counting tables, and there are multiple people at these counting tables, by the way, so there's at least 20 people per 1 monitor. Sounds about right, huh? Sounds like enough people to be doing signature checks. And we were kept some distance from the tables. Oh, okay, yes. So like I said before, try to read a book across the room. But at least they're flipping the pages for you. There is no telling what we missed under these unreasonable restrictions. The miscounted batch has been signed off by 2 official counters. How can you not see that the steel is on right now? I know anybody who's been watching this long is probably sympathetic to this cause, and clearly understands that there is something fucking fishy going on. DeKalb County reportedly completed their state-mandated risk-limiting audit Sunday night. This was published earlier today. Just saying. That's why the fact that they certified the election in Wayne County in Michigan there after being called racist, xenophobic, whatever the fuck they did. Yeah, really don't mean squat because you're going to go back and audit it. And to just wrap this up, according to WSBTV, 57 counties left the recount with the same ballot count as before, but 21 counties are either above or below the original ballot count, and 32 counties are off by single-digit numbers and are being investigated. Former Vice President Joe Biden is leading Georgia by just under 13,000 votes. Well, if there was a big discrepancy there and they found over 9,000 ballots, just weren't there, I'm going to have to update that total. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen because, it's pretty widespread knowledge that this Georgia election is not anywhere near as secure as they were originally saying, and this recount is nowhere as comprehensive as we were promised. So is the Trump campaign going to have to do something legal about this? Are they going to have to ask for another audit or an actual audit or contest the fact that they didn't do an audit? I don't know their legal path forward, but I would imagine it involves lawsuits, and all I can hope and pray is that there's a certain lawyer, not a judge, out in Georgia right now, and hopefully he's doing something about that. But let's end on some good news. How about that one? Like I was asking there, is the Trump campaign going to have to ask for another audit or an actual audit or ask them to follow up on it? Well, they've already asked for an audit of a different state because, okay, we went from Michigan and then we went over to the West Coast and then we went back to the East Coast and now we're going to head back up north for one of the first recounts that was asked. And people thought that this one would not happen because the Trump campaign would have to put up money for it. And I'm talking about Wisconsin, and we got that goddamn goods here right now because Trump pays $3 million to cover Wisconsin recount. President Donald Trump's campaign has paid $3 million for a partial recount or Wisconsin recount in Dane and Milwaukee counties. Milwaukee is where the huge dump just kind of showed up in the middle of the night. I would have asked for Kenosha as well because he was leading by 40,000 votes. And then all of a sudden it became a null and void point. Or there ended up being 40,000 votes counted. Let me just walk that back for a second. He was up by 20,000 and then all of a sudden the gap magically got closed overnight once everybody went to bed when they said that they were going to stop counting votes. And then an hour and a half went by and they started counting votes again. Nothing sus about that. Campaign said in a statement they had paid for the recounts Tuesday night and planned to submit the required paperwork on Wednesday. The two counties in question reportedly voted overwhelmingly for Joe Biden. You don't say. The two counties are known for being reliably Democratic strongholds. Milwaukee County is the biggest in the state and the most populous black county. Oh, they're probably racists for doing that, right? Dane County, the third largest in the state, contains Wisconsin's liberal capital city of Madison. And the leftist University of Wisconsin-Madison. Now that must be, I'm just going to go ahead and throw this one out there. Now, there would be a lot of kids that came in and would register to vote if they were in university. Now, you should be able to find if those kids who would normally be in dorms ended up voting in Wisconsin as well as wherever else they're from. If they're from a different county, if they sent in their mail-in ballots, so I can understand why they want to canvass that district as well, or that county rather. These two counties were selected because they are locations with the worst irregularities, said the Trump campaign in a statement, noting that there were areas where there were illegally altered absentee ballots. Exactly. Illegally issued absentee ballots and illegal advice given to government officials allowing Wisconsin voter ID laws to be circumvented, like the good old signature checks. That was one of the accusations that was kind of out there in the ether, but yeah. Let's just see. Trump campaign believes voters skirted Wisconsin's photo ID requirements by claiming they were indefinitely confined due to COVID-19. Unfucking believable. And therefore didn't have to present a photo ID in order to return the absentee ballot. Wisconsin law requires all voters to present a photo ID to vote in person and by mail. Well, if that law's on the books, there is going to be a fuck ton of ballots being thrown out. I'll just say it now. And Wisconsin's only separated by like 20,000 votes, if that. Clerks in Milwaukee and Dane counties publicly told voters that they could cast an absentee ballot without providing a photo ID by declaring themselves indefinitely confined due to the COVID-19 pandemic. May I remind you, Wisconsin law requires all voters to present a photo ID to vote in person and by mail. But clerks, not judges, not lawyers, not even politicians, clerks. Okay. The Wisconsin Republican Party sued Democratic Dane County Clerk Scott McDonald over Facebook posts he wrote contradicting the Wisconsin Elections Commission. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ordered McDonald, I shall not disparage the good name of Donald McDonald, to stop giving voter guidance that is different from what is actually approved, specifically stating that indefinitely confined status is for each individual voters to make based on their current circumstances, as that status is not meant for avoiding the voter ID requirement. Just an irregularity, right? It's got to be an irregularity. There's nothing fraudulent about that. There is, in fact, evidence of a voter irregularity in Wisconsin. Dane County has grown exponentially in the last decade, but Milwaukee County's population has remained virtually stagnant. Yet, somehow Biden did better than former President Barack Obama 2008 performance in Milwaukee County. Ain't that a bitch? It is odd that a county the Census Bureau population estimates show has been actually shrinking the last decade reported more votes for Biden than Obama, a historic figure that motivated record numbers of black votes in 2008. Yeah, that's because everybody who voted for Biden is black. Because if you have to think about voting for President Trump, remember, what did he say? You ain't black. Exactly. Also important to point out the last sentence here. After the recount is officially approved by the Elections Commission chair, it could start as soon as Thursday, but no later than Saturday, and will have to be completed by December 1st. So are we going to see boxes of ballots that may or may not have signatures on them, that may or may not have the proper photo ID requirements? I think so. Boy, you could really see Wisconsin coming off the board super quick. I'm just saying. What I'm finding a little bit weird right now is the very, very quiet nature of Arizona and Pennsylvania right now. Haven't heard dick about Pennsylvania in a little while. And Arizona, I guess it's all counted up, and even though Trump was trending correctly in the right direction, all of a sudden there was an influx of mail-in ballots that showed up and just magically pushed Biden over the top. Nothing to see here, folks, but as far as I know, the lawsuit in Maricopa County is still standing, so perhaps tomorrow, probably by the end of the week, we'll hear something about that. So, but yeah, that'll do it for today. So we got intimidation tactics in Michigan, some thwarted voter fraud in California, Georgia not knowing how to count, and Wisconsin, well, hopefully learning how to count. Let's hope we find the truth and nobody decides that they're going to use their supposed power in order to intimidate any of the voters or any of the officials out there to vote with their conscience. God, that's a old throwback to the 2016 election when they were telling the electors to vote their conscience. Just a bunch of evil sacks of shit. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for voter fraud here today, unless something breaking by the time that I wrap up the third video shows up. So, until we meet again on this topic tomorrow, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.